So let's bring in Will Westmoreland, a farmer and the executive director of the Back 40, serving as a voice for rural America. Will, thank you so much for your time. First of all, what are your thoughts on the raids themselves and the fact that the government is really saying that there is no way it is backing down from its stated mission?
I think it's a broken promise. I'm down in Bastrop, Texas right now, speaking to a group of rural advocates here over the next couple of days. And I think farmers really believed President Trump when he said he was only going to deport criminals. And I think the problem is that these raids now have been very widespread. We've seen them chasing immigrant workers across farm fields, raiding beef production plants, poultry production plants, and the results have been devastating so far, and they're only going to get worse. I'm really concerned.
And I'd like to listen to a little bit more of what the president has said about this.
And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you go into a farm and you look and people they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed to throw them out. And you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So we're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers.
All right. So, well, we heard from the president there. He's acknowledging that, the system is broken, so to speak. But you are a farmer. How is this impacting some of the people you employ, whether their status is legal or illegal? Are people scared to come to work? Or do you know farmers who are experiencing that?
Yes, I don't employ immigrants in my farming operation in Southwest Missouri. I do a very specific type of intense farming, but I do talk to farmers all over the country that employ immigrants. I mean, 50% of the agricultural workforce in this country is undocumented immigration, up to 70% immigration as a whole. So it has a huge impact. When the president made this promise that he was only going to deport the criminals, and then really shortly into his administration, we had these raids in the Central Valley of California and other key agricultural areas, what it resulted in within 3 days was a 75% absenteeism rate among farm workers. And no farm, regardless of its size, can operate very long without 75% of its workers. And we're seeing that trend continue when raids go into a certain area and people are grabbed off the farms. Then you see this no-show problem and people don't show up to work, and it causes a huge problem. Not only, agriculture is a real-time endeavor. When crops become ripe, they have to be harvested out of the field within a very specific period of time. When a cow has to be milked for dairy production, it has to happen now. We just can't wait for the problem to be fixed because we're feeling the ramifications already. And if I could say one other thing, although I'm glad the president's had this epiphany about the relationship between farmers and their workers, he also shows that he doesn't have a very good understanding of the problem as a whole, because first of all, when these workers are taken off the farm, they're not replaced by other workers. There's just a gap there. It's not like the federal government is swooping up all of the non-criminal immigrant labor, and then all of a sudden they're allowing the criminal immigrants to come work on the farm. That's one of the silliest things I've ever heard. There's just an empty gap there. Nobody's working the farm, and that's what's causing the problem. And the second thing I'll say, yes, the immigration raids are part of the problem, but the reason why we have so much undocumented immigrant work on farms across the United States is because the H-2A visa program is broken. So if the president and Congress are really serious about fixing the problem, they've got to get serious about fixing the process that we use to bring immigrant workers into the country to work on farms.
And to expand upon that a little bit, I'm from Nebraska, Will, so I certainly understand the farmer mentality. Talk about why we do see so many immigrants, whether they are documented or undocumented, working in these industries like meatpacking, like farming. It's hard work. And a lot of the reason is because Americans just don't want those jobs.
or they don't live in the areas where these jobs are available. Our largest 400 agricultural counties in this country are shrinking. The average farmer age right now is 58 years old in those counties. Young people are moving away for a variety of issues. Hospitals are being closed, schools are being consolidated. We're losing our infrastructure out there for small businesses to grow. And this movement away from these agricultural areas of families and young people mean that there isn't anybody in there to take these jobs whenever they're posted. So farmers have the option to bring people into this country to work through the H-2A visa program. And I want to say quick three things about that program. One, very few of the applications that go in for that program get processed in a timely manner. Two, whenever a farmer, especially a farmer that's harvesting edible crops, goes through that program, it's so cumbersome and so delayed that the people that come through that program end up showing up at the field to harvest crops 22 days past the deadline when they're needed, which means that a huge amount of waste occurs from rotting crops in the field, et cetera, because they can't get the harvest done because of the delay in that program. And frankly, the farmer mentality out there right now, and I agree with it, is that the reason they don't fix this problem is because it's a political powerhouse for them. They can run on this issue over and over again. I read an article the other day that said that the Republican Party raised $400 million in the last election on immigration. And you ask yourself the question, why would they ever fix the problem if there's an economic and political advantage to not fixing it? And that's just not the way you run a country.
I do want to ask you one last question. We are running out of time, but specifically, I think a lot of people watch this and they say, well, listen, these people are here illegally. We need to get them out. But what does this mean specifically when it comes to our food supply, when it comes to Americans, whether you are in Missouri, whether you are here in Chicago, wherever you are? What does it mean when we go to the store if this continues to happen?
Well, I want to say real quickly, they would be here legally if we had a system that allowed them to do that efficiently. In terms of food pricing, I'll give you an example. Texas A&M, not far from where I am here in Texas today, they did a study that showed if we were to deport half of the immigrant workers on dairy farms across this country, it would lead to a 33% increase in dairy products at the store because of the fact that we would see a reduction in dairy herds, the overall number of farms, and the overall number of production. If you were to raid these farms and take away 90% or more of these immigrant workers, it could lead to almost a 70% increase in milk and other dairy products in the household. And that would just be devastating to all families, especially low-income families that rely on dairy products as staples in their regular meal course.
All right, Will Westmoreland, really appreciate your time today. Thank you.